everyone. Here we are yet again with a special treat today. So I want you to think of that person that you know that knows everything about cars. Picture it in your head. Maybe it's a mechanic, a friend. And then I have somebody here that has forgotten more than that person knows. And his name is BIll Moser. Bill?
Hello.
Was that too high of accolades?
Well, that's a lot of accolades. That sounds like Grandpa doing that to me.
Apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it?
True.
I was talking about his grandpa.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Great guy.
Yeah. Bill is a good friend of Gramps. And Gramps recently passed away. We're here today. And, well, Bill, why don't you tell me because I'm really interested in how you got started in the car world.
Well, I'm 84 years old, and my dad had car lots. Before that, he was a mechanic when I was World War II baby. And then he got car lots, so we hung out at the car lots and worked on cars all my whole life. I come from Idaho, and you can have a driver's license, a daytime driver's license, when you're 14. So that was a big deal.
Is that still
I don't know if it is now,
Okay.
but it was then for years. And so I've been driving since I was 14, and man, it's just love cars. My first car was a 1940 Ford Coupe. You know, went through a lot of cars.
40s? I mean, anything in the early 40s is extremely rare, right? Because
yeah.
it was wartime.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
So that must have been like, what, one of just a couple hundred?
Well, you know, I had a lot of cars. Worked all summer with my dad, but my dad was one of those typical car dealers, whereas you come home from school and your car's gone. He had sold it.
Oh.
So then you get another car. So there was lots and lots of that, you know. But I guess looking back, it was fine, you know.
I mean, you don't
Worked
get
on a lot of cars.
Yeah, you wouldn't get like, I guess it would be hard to get super attached to a single car.
Oh yeah, it was really tough. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because for me, I've always had like just the one at a time or something. So it's like, this is my car, and everything that happens to it, like, you know, you scrape over a bump or anything, and you feel that in your chest, and you're like, and it hurts you a little bit.
Yeah. I have roughly about, I don't know, 10 or 11 cars. I don't even know what I have, to be honest with you, but I have 5 1940 Fords and several 54 Chevys, and of course the 32 Roadster. But that's why I have so many, is because of when my dad would sell them, I can't let go. Now I'm in control of my own self, and so I just keep. I'll sell one once in a blue moon, but yeah, come home from school and your car's gone. I mean, that was heartbreaking.
God.
Heartbreaking, yeah. And there was lots of that. All of them. There's 4 of us, and the same with all of them.
Was it like a Ford dealership?
No, it was an independent.
Oh, okay.
It was an independent car lot. Used cars.
Oh, okay.
Just a used car lot. Yeah.
All right.
So, yeah.
You have to go and like set the timing on all of them.
Yeah. Well, we had to do valve jobs on them. You know, I had to get them ready for the front lot to go on. You know, so you had to renovate them, detail them, and fix whatever was alien on them.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of a, nobody knows how to set timing anymore. Nobody knows really how to do valve jobs. Those kind of things are, you know, the computer takes care of that now.
Oh yeah. They diagnose everything. In them days, you had to really figure things out. You know.
Yeah, I remember even like the really old, not that Model A that we just saw, but like a Model T, I think it was, where they had the timing advance and the timing retard on the steering wheel.
That Model A did too with the original motor.
Oh, was it?
It had
Okay.
advance and the throttle on the deal.
Yeah, and so I mean, just driving a car back then, you kind of still had to be a mechanic.
Oh yeah.
Because you had to know how everything worked.
Yes.
And that's kind of the same. Like when I go to when I fly, you kind of have to do that same thing. Like you control the mixture and everything like that. You know, if you're about to take off, it's full rich, full throttle, full it all, and you know then you go. But you know once you get in the air, you kind of lean it out, and it's just so kind of being a pilot, you have to be a little bit of a mechanic too. So my car background kind of helped learn that, you know. You said you had a wrecking yard as well.
No, I worked at a wrecking yard in Rancho Cordova for years.
Oh, okay.
And it was a real large wrecking yard called CNC Auto Wreckers.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, my daughter just had she had her first play in Rancho Cordova.
Oh.
Yeah, a little Wizard of Oz play, a singing part.
Oh, cute. Yeah. that little girl I met?
Yeah, the tall one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the little one that hides behind people's legs and like is shy. She doesn't have a singing part in much yet, but you know, seeing her sister doing that, and it was amazing to me that a 2-year-old can sit still, sit quietly, and not be disruptive for 3 hours. You know, I've never seen that before.
Oh, yeah.
And she did it twice. She went to 2 shows, and she was just all in, just like the whole time.
Cute.
You know, just watching her sister up there and doing her thing, you know? So it's good to find kind of like an outlet like that because we tried to get them into sports, you know, and sometimes it works for kids, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Yep.
My mom kind of forced me to do sports. And so, you know, in baseball, I was just the kid in the outfield looking for frogs on the ground, you know?
That would be me.
Yeah. Josh, look up. There's a ball coming at you.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
But yeah, actually, we just saw a frog in the pond not too long ago. First frog. Finally have frogs in there now.
Pretty good sized frog also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say, you know, it could have been a toad.
Oh, could have been, yeah.
You know, because it had that short face. So
That's cool.
but yeah,
Well, I was going to get back to say something about that wrecking yard. When I worked at CNC, it was a large wrecking yard. And but what's so nice that being one of the managers there, we get to build a car for ourselves. And you can have anything you want and all the parts are available. So it was really neat.
it's kind of like that Johnny Cash song.
Yeah.
One piece at a time.
Yeah, but you can just build nice stuff, you know.
Yeah. Well,
It's pretty cool.
Like, you know where it came from. You know, like it did run at one point when I took this motor out, you know?
I built a 70 El Camino there, and it was really, really neat.
What did Chevy 350 in there? And
Chevy 350, and then it had, what's the hood? Cal induction hood on it and stuff, all factory stuff, but just take it off of another Chevelle, you know? Mm-hmm. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, because that's the same frame.
You can build the best of the best with all the parts.
Yeah. It's the same frame, right? That they have?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because my stepdad has an El Camino, and he loves it. He loves it. He's always wanted one, and my mom really wants to get a truck, and he was like, "Well, we have one," and I was like,
"Oh yeah,
that's not quite."
Yeah,
you know. But I just can't get behind him. It's a 2-seater car that it's not a truck or a car. Really, it's kind of an in between.
Yeah. I always thought an El Camino was pretty cool, though. I liked them.
It's a cool concept. I just can't get behind him. But like we said, like everybody has their own taste in cars.
Yeah.
You know, like the guy that was here earlier, myself, Drew, you, everybody, we all have our different tastes, you know, and that's kind of like what the show's all about, you know? Everybody has their own story. And I think, so before the show, you kind of asked me why I started this, how I kind of got into it. And it was, like I said, my grandpa was going to start his own podcast. And so I did all the research for him to, you know, what needs to be set up, what kind of stuff he needs to buy. And we were going to do it together. And then he got pneumonia and he just kind of started to get to where he couldn't really talk for that long, you know. And so I thought, well, I'll start mine and maybe I'll have Gramps on a couple times. You know, we actually did have one episode where I think we talked about the prison complex and prisons and how a lot of them are for profit and what they really do to like rehabilitate people. You know, and so there was kind of that aspect of it, but we also, you know, I had him watch the episodes and pitch different ideas to him and everything. We only got one episode before he passed away, but
He came into the garage here?
no, actually I went over to his house and we did an audio only.
Okay.
But
Cool.
But yeah, that was cool. And actually, with technology the way that it is today, when he passed away, I had those recordings, and I was thankful to have those because they're good to go back on. And another reason why I started is because I had friends pass away before he did that were supposed to be on, and I just told you about the guy up the street that passed away not that long ago. And so when these people are gone, all the stories are gone with them.
Yeah.
And if you have anything like this to where it's a recording and you have it on video, on audio, you can go back to it and it's kind of like they're still there, But when I used those audio recordings I had with Gramps, and I created an AI voice of Gramps. So you can type in whatever you want him to say and it says it in his voice.
Well, how cool is that?
Yeah, so we're gonna redo a couple of the intros and outros for the show, and eventually we'll incorporate his voice in there, and he'll be kind of doing the introduction.
Okay.
So
that's pretty neat.
I feel like he'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
Liked
him really well.
Yeah, I mean, he always used to talk about you,
And
and
was so sharp, man. Witty. Mm-hmm. Never met a person had the wit that he had.
yeah,
Man, he was good.
and just my wife and one of my best friends went to him for wisdom. If they had questions, if they were like, hey, I'm gonna get this new job, but I'm not really sure if this is the right fit. What do you think? And it's like they had grandparents themselves, but they went to Gramps for everything, and it was like he wasn't just my grandpa. He was the kind of person that was like everybody's.
Yeah.
And you don't really have a lot of people like that that can be straight with you, that you will look you in the eye and say, you're going to fuck this up, or, well, go for it. Worst that can happen is you go back and you're doing exactly what you're doing now.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very thankful that I had the time that I did with him. I mean, my first job was there with him. I was listening to talk radio in the truck with him for all day. And, he instilled a decent work ethic in me to where, I could work a full day without, complaining.
He was also a very good mechanic.
Oh yeah.
He was sharp. He didn't think he was, but he really was a sharp mechanic.
Yeah, I mean, everybody in the family went to him for all the car things, and if it weren't for him, I would have never got this Camaro built. I would have never got it running. I mean, and he was always like very, very encouraging about it. Like, man, I think that's great, because I didn't know anything about carburetors or anything. I'm come from a life where every car I've had, I've been able to plug a laptop in to tune it.
Yeah.
And sensors everywhere. If something goes wrong, probably a sensor.
Yeah.
But when he came over, he helped me do the timing on it. And of course, you make these mistakes because I'm not used to a mechanical fan. So I reached my hand in there and still have the scar on my finger. Luckily, I have the scar and a finger.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he was like, God damn, don't ever do that again, because the blood shot out, and everywhere. And I've, done things where I've accidentally burned all my arm hair off with the carburetor because I'm reaching around pulling the throttle instead of going on the throttle side and pulling the throttle. It's little things like that where he didn't quite have the time to be like, hey, don't do that before I did it. And it was like, well, now now you know why we don't do that. So, I mean, very, very thankful. And, even at the end, he was, I remember you, the first time I met you, first thing you said to him was, hey, Dave, where's your wallet at?
Oh, yeah. We had some fun times, boy, I'll tell you. Yeah, he was really good.
And like the times when he would always talk about like growing up in that time where it was like you're living in Grease, the movie, you know, and all those cars and
Well, he did all the stories that him and I talked about when him growing up. Well, I was a salesman in the Bay Area, and my territory was Richmond, California also. So I made a point to go by. I knew all his stories. I mean, I just practically lived them. I knew, but I went by and looked at the house, saw everything, you know, how he pulled wood, that tree he pulled out when he was going someplace when his mom and dad left to go someplace. And when they left, he got in his mom's car and driving down the street, and they had forgot something. And they turn around and come back, and they saw him. And the only thing he said, I'm dead. I'm dead. And his friend jumped out of the car and says, I ain't going to be dead. And he jumped out of the car, and Dave's dead beat his butt. But I know the streets. I knew everything place what he did because I went over and checked it all out. It's really cool. Really cool.
yeah, I mean that time to be a teenager during that time is such a unique time, right? Because you have just the budding, like the beginning of car culture itself, really. You know, like the beginning of hot rod culture. The hot rod itself owes a lot to bootlegging.
Yeah.
And the reason you made them fast was because cop cars weren't fast back then.
Yeah.
So if you could just make it a little bit faster, there's nothing that they could do.
Yeah. There's a couple of heroes that I always have. It was one of his Smokey Unick and Junior Johnson. They're NASCAR people.
Okay. I've heard of Junior Johnson.
Yeah. They made motors. They made all that stuff on their own, high-tech stuff. I can remember 1970, 69 to 70, NASCAR was going over 200 miles an hour. And they wanted to slow them down. So in 70, they came out with restrictor plates under the carburetors. So the manufacturers had to do that too. And so they would slow them way back down to 180, 170, 180. Then within a year or two or three, they're right back up there with the same restrictions, but they're right back up with all their knowledge. These guys just were amazing.
Yeah, I mean that restrictor plate, that was kind of the start of because that wasn't the government. That was the NHRA that made him do that, right?
No, I think, I don't know. Yes, possibly. I don't know. Yeah, I can't say for sure. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I just know that I bought a new Chevrolet pickup in 70 and they had the restrictor plate. And I said, what's that? And they said all cars had to have a restrictor plate, you know.
So you could take it out though, right?
Oh, yeah, just aluminum plate. But it slowed it, whatever it was for the Venturis and stuff, it slowed them way back down.
What, hey, Drew, can you pull up and see what those restrictor plates look like? Because I don't think a lot of people that are watching would probably know what that looks. I mean, I know that they have heard of a restrictor plate because a lot of people, a lot of movies say, you know, I think it was in Joe Dirt where it was like, it took the restrictor plate out, you know?
It was just a flat aluminum plate, as I remember, but it seemed like after when it took them off, kind of like that, only it was more OEM looking instead of a hot rod look.
Oh, that's kind of like, it's almost like a...
So it had to have the Venturis, all different ports and stuff. It had to be something to do with that to slow those guys down.
That's almost like a carburetor, like a riser.
You could almost probably put in a 1970 Chevrolet with a restrictor plate to see if it showed a picture of that.
You said 1978?
Probably a collector's item now to see one. Yeah, I don't see that up there. But anyway, it slowed those guys way, way down, you know. And then they still come back.
Yeah, they are basically the forefront of automotive science.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. In 1957, NASCAR, Ford and General Motors pulled out NASCAR. Pulled out. But there was a lot of backdoor stuff going on. They were still putting parts out through the back door. They said they weren't, but they were. Well, that's Smokey Unick is the guy that made on Chevrolets 283 cubic inch, 283 horsepower. Horsepower per cubic inch. He was the guy that designed that, doing that with those motors, tuning them motors. So pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Just backdoor stuff. I'm sitting in his garage doing all that.
So Ford and GM pulled out. They said we're not going to provide parts anymore.
Yes. Yeah, there was a reason for it. I don't know if the government stepped in, but whatever it was a big deal.
So what about Chrysler?
I can't remember.
So they probably said something like,
But Ford and Chevrolet definitely pulled out.
like if you're going to make cars to sell to everybody, you can't be involved in this.
Yeah, I just don't remember what all the reason was, but the terminology was race win on Sunday, sell on Monday. You know. Yeah.
Like to sell that same car?
Well, yeah, you know what I mean. Bring sales if a Chevrolet or whatever it was winning. Well, that's what the public would buy. They say win on Sunday, sell on Monday.
There you go. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it was a good promotional thing. Yeah.
So why don't you tell us about? So you started painting cars, right? Not just the mechanical aspect of them. How'd you get into painting?
Well, when my dad had car lots, we had big car lots and we had a shop, but also there was a body shop in the same complex for us that we owned, but we subletted that out. My dad rented that out to body shop people. I just loved working on cars, being in the body shop. So I would get to paint cars, sand cars, prepare them, mask them all off, and then in the 40s, lots of two-tone. So you had a two-tone, and then the next day come back and cover that up so they could paint the other color. And so I was free labor for those guys, but they worked on my car. They helped me mold in the deck lid and all that kind of stuff for free for me doing that. So I was always liking the body shop. But so go through all these years, I knew how to do all that, but I never could paint. I'd always get all my cars sanded, and then I'd have a painter paint them. It just got to the point where I'd say, hey, I want everything painted. Just could you paint underneath here real good? He said, oh, yeah, and they never do. If it's up on a hoist, you could see all the holidays in them,
Yeah.
So I just learned to do it myself. I said, finally, I'm going to. So I started painting, and in about 1967 or 68, I started doing my own paint work and stuff. And so now I do everything myself.
I heard a rumor that you got started on fridges.
I did a lot of refrigerators. I started, I think it was in 73, 4, 5, somewhere along in there, or 72 or 3 when they were started fading the refrigerators were two-toned.
Oh, really?
And the washing machines, yeah. And so I watched the body shop guy do that. I said, well, I can do that. So I did a lot of that for people.
Yeah, I mean, a fridge, that's kind of like, there's not really a lot of curves.
Yeah, it was all one color. Then you just take another color, and go highlight around it.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. I did a lot of that for people,
Yeah, I mean, when I started getting into body work, I worked for 2 shops, right? And these 2 shops could not be more different from each other. One of them was Miracle Auto Body, which is high volume, low quality.
Yeah.
But so I was painting this box truck, right? Just white box truck. And I was sanding it. And I was sanding it basically too much, because the paint was just coming off. And I wanted to make sure, I was like, well, there's still paint on there. I got to get the paint off. And I guess that was wrong because it was supposed to be what they call a 50-footer, meaning that it looks good from 50 feet away. And, the aspect of that, the reason is because it wants a cheap paint job because it's just a box truck, right? So it didn't work out there very well. And so then I went to work a couple of years later at a hot rod shop down in Santa Cruz, or I think it was maybe Watsonville, but which is complete opposite, right? We would media blast everything to where, I had this basically like a backpack on and this big hose, and it was shooting what looked like sand, but was actually tiny glass beads.
Yes.
And shooting that on there. And as soon as you finish one panel, you get to the other side of it, this side is going to start to rust, so
The air will do it.
yeah. And so it's just all about get it done quick and get it all done and get it in there so you can quickly go over it and primer it before it rusts.
Yeah.
And, then I used everything I learned at Miracle to work there. And that didn't work out well because they don't want 50-footers. They want 1-inchers.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
And so, I mean, it didn't work out there either. So I just started to decide I'm just going to do it for fun and not make it into a job. It's always going to be a job / hobby.
It's a lot of work. It's a tremendous amount, a lot of work. But nowadays the material is so expensive that you can't afford to make a mistake. You got to be careful to mix a right amount of paint, not too much because you have to throw it away. You got to have enough so that it'll cover everything,
Mm-hmm.
So,
and mix it exactly the same way.
Yeah.
It's such a science that goes into this now, and if you do mess up, then you kind of have to wait. You have to wait. You have to resand it. And for me, I can do a complete car, but if I'm just sanding a spot and trying to spot things, I can't blend. That's an art that I have not yet learned.
I just did that last week on that 40 Ford sedan delivery, and we used the same paint out of the same can that painted the car. Of course, the car had been painted 10 years, roughly. And I had a couple little bad spots, but I can't blend. I figured how to blend, but the guy told me, no, that's not how you do it, this professional guy. So he said he'd come down and do it for me. So he came down last Monday or week ago, Monday or whatever. But it turns out he found out that he didn't do it the way he told me he was going to do it. So I knew how to do it. But anyway, to make a long story short, we did, and it's the wrong color. Oh yeah, I'm just sick about it right now. So it's one of those things. $500 for 2 quarts of paint. And it don't match.
Yeah, I spent more on paint than I spent on the car.
Yeah,
buying the car.
Yeah. So it is what it is. So, but being at my age, I decided to drive this car. I have to get it done and drive it because if I do it correctly my way, then it's going to be another year or two to strip it all down and do it right. I'm not going to do that. It looks pretty decent, and I just took it to the upholstery shop Tuesday, so that's where I'm at right now in that.
Oh.
Without the bad paint, but
how different was the color?
Well, it's different to me, and you can see it, but everybody says, "Oh, it isn't that bad." So I've learned over the years, Josh, that the nicer the cars are, the more people want to pick them apart.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's
They always pick it apart. They just have all kind of ways to pick them apart. But when the rougher they are, they never say anything. So this one's got little chips in it. It's got this and it's got that. It's just going to be a beater for me. So it'll be just fine.
Yeah. So that's actually a good point because when I was painting mine, there was different stages of me, like what I wanted to do with it. Right. Cause I got it all rusted out I bought it off a tweaker, and, they had cats living in there and, it smelled nasty and it was gross, a little bit of rust in there. And I thought, I'm just going to buy it, drive it around and just rattle can it, just rattle can it and whatever. And then I started taking things off and, this is rusty. I got to oh gosh, I'm sanding and it's still going in. So what is this? And it was just a bunch of Bondo. Underneath it was chicken wire.
Oh, my God.
Underneath that was hay. And, so I, took that off and I made sure to get the ducting, the cheap ducting that you can get at Home Depot. And so I cut that out, contoured it a little bit and, shaved all the galvanized stuff off so I can weld it and, welded it on there and you can't tell, but then I started to be like, okay, well now if I'm going to do all this stuff, then I really have to actually paint it. Well, if I'm going to actually paint it, then I'm going to do the carpet too. If I'm going to carpet, then I'm going to do the seats and the dash and the electronics. And it just snowballs.
Yeah, it just keeps going.
Yeah. And it kept going to where now, I mean, what I had to do to make sure it actually just got done was set a date. Right. So I was like, I need to have it done because it's like the same kind of car from Transformers. So my daughter and me really like Transformers. And so she helped me build it. And I was like, we're going to drive this to go see the movie that this car is in,
Cute.
And so we did. And it was like last June that we finished it. And, we did it. Goal completed. We drove it to the movie theater. We went in, saw it. And I actually I couldn't enjoy the movie because I was like, I got to go check on the car, because it had never been that far away from the house and it never been parked outside for that long and not been looked at by me the whole time, And so I left the movie, went out there, left my kid in the movie, went out there, looked at it. Okay. Went back in. I was like, okay, it's safe. It's okay. And she's like, can we just watch the movie, Dad? And so I was like, yeah, okay. And so now I pick her up from school in it and everything. But when I was painting it, I had converted my garage to a paint booth, right? So I had fans in there set up. I had plastic all over. And one of the plastic sheets, when I was doing the clear, some wind got a hold of it and it slapped the rear quarter panel of my car. So now it's it feels like if you rub on it, it says something in Braille, But I'm leaving that there because you can only really see it if the sunset is at a certain time and the sun hits it just right.
Yeah.
And it looks like hieroglyphs or something, but you keep it on there. And that way I know that it's not perfect. And so if I get a ding or a dent or something like that, it's well, that's not going to it's not going to be in the back of my mind the whole time because it's not the only one.
Yeah. A friend of mine painted a car one time in Carmichael, a nice guy. He was so proud when he called me. He said, Bill, I got the car all painted, just finished it. And then I think he called me back about an hour or two later. He said, you're not going to believe what I did. He had the gallon can. It's in a little one-car garage. He had the gallon can up on the deal, and it had been pouring it. When he put the lid on, took a hammer and the trough, when top was full of paint.
Did it splash?
Splashed all over the side of the car.
Oh, shit.
It was a mess. I taught him, I said, Dave, you punch little holes in the can so the paint runs back in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so when your deal hit the quarter panel, but his just splattered the whole side of the car. Oh. Well, not all of it, but real bad, And it was a metallic paint, so it was really...
Very noticeable.
Yeah, so you just learn a lot over the years. You learn. And
you learn to make sure that you have time and that you can take that time. Because when I was painting it, my family had moved out of the house and given me a month in the house before we moved up here to finish, right? Because I can't be painting in the garage and, fuming out the kids,
Yeah.
getting them all high and everything. And so they were out. And so it was just me. And I was like, well, I'm just going to get this done. I'm just going to go as long as it takes to paint it because I can stay up as late as I want, make all the noise I want, and just get it done. So it was midnight, and my buddy comes over, and, I didn't want any help with it. And I was like, you come over and just have some beers and just be some company with me. And so we did, and we had some beers, and we had some more, and then we had some more after that. And so it came time to do the spoiler, which is the last piece of the car that I had to paint, right? Just the rear spoiler. And it had stripes on it, right? So I painted the stripes. They matched to the car. And, I undid one of the stripes because it was pinstripe. So I undid one of the stripes, sprayed it black, then sprayed the yellow, and went back to it the next day. And I was like, oh, shit, because the tape had lifted and it had mixed into a blackish yellow color and it swirled everywhere. And so, lesson learned with that, paint during the day when you're relatively sober and pay attention, And so I ended up having to redo the spoiler when I was here, and we just have an empty field over there. So I took it in the field and painted it, brought my compressor out there, and you got to do it quick. Otherwise the bugs are going to land in it.
Oh yeah.
And there was, you could have taken that spoiler and probably could have I don't know what they did in Jurassic Park because there's so many bugs in that clear. You probably could have done that and took in some DNA and cloned some dinosaurs. There's so many bugs in there.
You can't help it. No matter how good you get it, you're still going to get bugs and stuff.
They're attracted to it almost, And the fact that it was yellow, kind of flower color, doesn't really help.
I tried to do my painting a lot of times, something that's going to be really nice, like say 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30. Get it all ready the night before, everything completely ready to go. Just have to go down and just give one little wipe job with a tack rag and then paint, because then you beat the bugs.
Yeah.
And
okay.
Because they come out right after that and they start getting on the paint.
Yeah.
A lot of times after you've painted and starts setting up for at least a half an hour, even though it's still tacky, but you can get the bugs off.
Yeah. Well, there's a certain point where you're like, you can get the bugs off, but then a couple minutes later, you need to leave them in there until it dries. And then you need to maybe get them with a razor or, buff them out afterwards. Do it in
Yeah. I color sand them and just color sand them way down and then buff it. Sometimes you can't see them. It might be a little speck, but you can't see them.
Yeah. There's also a piece of it. There's a point in the car where I can literally show you where the blood is, where the sweat is, and where the tears are, because when I was painting, it was probably late afternoon and it was hot. Right. And I had you got that bunny suit on to where you got the hood, and not only that, but it's like the fumes in the paint booth make it hotter, and you got this respirator on you. So everything is sweaty. And so I'm going to paint like this, and just a little faucet of sweat pours out onto the car. And I'm like, oh shit. Oh man. And it was right when I was laying the color. So there's the coverage on that area is not great. And so when I went to color sand it, some of the color sanded all the way through to the sealer, the white sealer that I had on there. So there's tiny little white spots on it.
Well, when I find that now, no matter how hard you try, if you get a little bit of a run or a sag, you can come back and color sand, but it's a different color. Mm-hmm. Totally a different color. So it's almost best just to leave a little sag or a little bit of a run or whatever someplace, because it doesn't show as much as a different color. Mm-hmm. That's depressing too, though. It
is. It's a bummer, but you have to just take a step back, look at the big picture. This is not going at the Barrett Jackson Auto Show.
Yeah.
This is not going to be on TV. It's not. It's just a cool car to drive around, and eventually it'll be fast.
Yeah.
My kids can drive it around. Maybe not the young one, but the oldest one, she probably reached the pedals now. And they're not scared of the sound anymore. The only thing is my wife doesn't like the smell, because when I started in here, even with the garage door open, it stinks up the whole house.
Yeah.
And so
I get that at home too all the time. Can't you just back it outside?
Yeah. But a couple weeks ago, my dog got sprayed by a skunk. And, we couldn't let him in the house. So he had to spend the night out here in the garage. And, that night, because he was like, he went out there to go pee at like 11:30 at night. And of course, he's got his nose right up a skunk's ass. Like, the skunk was totally trying to get away, but he was trying to, if he was any closer, he'd be inside of that skunk.
Sprayed
him right in the face, and it got all over him. He stunk, and he was really upset about it. But we had to go, and like midnight, we're washing the dog outside, and with hydrogen peroxide and ketchup, and didn't get the smell out. So he comes in here, spends the night, and it stinks up the whole garage. Right, stinks up everything. But 5 minutes of the car running in here, you can't even tell, So it just smelled like horsepower, And I told my wife, because she's very environmentally conscious, and I was like, I had to rev the car a lot. So yes, there was a lot of ozone burned, but nature made the smell, so nature must pay the price.
Did you finally get rid of the smell off the dog? Finally, it took a little while.
If you smell his face, it's kind of still there. But for the most part, it's gone. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because it gets in, apparently when they spray, it gets into like the glands, into the skin itself.
Yeah.
So I could shave that dog and it would still stink.
Yeah, for a fact. Yeah.
And it's like an oil-based thing that they spray. So it's scientifically made to be a pain in the ass and not be able to get out,
Yeah.
So I'm like fighting thousands and thousands of years of evolution with skunks to try and clean this dog off. And turns out 10 minutes of a hot rod, spruces up the garage.
Did it. Yeah. Great.
He hasn't learned his lesson, because I know the skunk lives under my deck, and he goes under there and he like pokes his nose in there, and it's just like,
he's going to get it again.
Yeah, he's going to get it again. And I just don't know. I mean, I don't know how to stop him, you know? But funny thing is the next, maybe couple days after that. So I told you my daughter had her play. And after the play was over, all the kids ran out into this field. And I went after her because I didn't want her to, just run off. And I don't like to lose sight of them. So there's these other kids and they're playing. And then all of a sudden they start screaming. And I'm like, and they're like, skunk. And then there's just the middle of the day, there's this skunk limping out. And I was like, oh, you guys better get away from that. Because if it sprays you, that's going to be the least of your problems. Because that skunk looks like it's a little sick. And it's out during the heat of the day.
Yes.
And it's kind of limping a little bit.
Could have rabies.
I got to think it had rabies, And that's not something anyone wants to go through. That's like shots everywhere that you don't want to get shots.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, yeah.
In pain, it's just...
They say it's really bad.
Yeah.
Really bad. But
there's not really much we can do because you saw our house butts up against this field out there and there's all kinds of critters, So even if we get cockroaches out here, luckily the chicken's favorite food is cockroaches and spiders. So they take care of that, but...
Do you ever let the chickens out and let them roam the whole backyard?
Sometimes, yeah. Like right now when it's all overgrown, like Jurassic Park out there, we do. We like to let them out because they'll shit all over the place, but it'll help with the grass.
Yeah.
And they'll get all the bugs. But we do have to kind of keep an eye on them because we have a drip system all for our redwoods out there. When we moved in, these redwoods were dying because they had... People that lived here before had like hammered screwdrivers into it to like be able to climb up, which killed one of the trees, right? But these things are over 100 feet tall. So if they fall, it's bye-bye house.
Yeah.
So we had to make the trees healthy and we had an arborist come by. He helped us with, setting up a drip system. He cut into one of the trees and was like, oh, these are actually still healthy. They want to live. So if you just keep watering them, let's see what happens.
There's a long life for a redwood anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just the thing is they need a lot of moisture, and the redwood forests, there's all kinds of fog there that comes in and everything. Here in Sacramento, it gets to be 116 sometimes. So
did you notice a difference after you started watering them?
Oh, it's a night and day difference.
Yeah.
It's a night and day difference now, and we're not worried about them at all. There's not limbs falling off. They're extremely healthy. They're growing new branches too. But the chickens, when we get them out there, they go straight for the drip systems because in those wet areas, that's where all the bugs congregate, and so you can't fault them because they're digging for the worms, for all these little like pincher bugs.
We have oak trees around our place, completely engulfed with oak trees. But around the house, last year, year before last, my wife noticed they're shedding a lot of leaves. So she started watering the oak trees. Some they're years and years old. Stopped it all.
Yeah. Yeah,
they got healthy just really fast.
You don't think about that, right? Because they're trees, right? They're just basically a fixture, But if you think about it, you got to water the garden. You got to water your tomato plants all the time.
The trees now, and no more shedding the leaves during the summer.
Yeah, and it's a lot safer too because they won't fall because we've got these storms with a lot of heavy winds around here, and there's a couple of times when my neighbor's tree did blow down, and luckily they're only like 20, 25 feet. They were just short enough to where they didn't get our house when they fell, right? But they wrecked one of the pieces of the fence. But if one of these redwood trees falls, it's
a big time.
It's game over.
It's big time damage, yeah.
And one thing that we live out here in Sacramento rather than in the Bay is we have SMUD out here rather than PG&E. And so SMUD is actually really good about going and so they came over here yesterday to check our trees, and they were like, "Hey, can I check your trees to see if we need to top them off or anything?" So they went back there and. They're all good. The ones behind the chicken coop are going to have to get topped next year. But when we first moved in, one of the trees was beyond saving. And so they, completely free of charge, came in there, cut the tree down, segmented it into little 3-foot segments to where we could use them as stools too.
Yeah. Mhm.
And they're like, we get to harvest all the branches and everything, but you can keep these. And I'm like, good deal. You're gonna do it for free because they're gonna hit the high voltage power lines, right? Because they're tall enough to do that. And they cut one of our palm trees, which was like 100 feet tall. And I mean, you go out there and it's storming and there's a lot of wind and you see that palm tree and there's like 60 feet of travel. Holy shit. That does not breed confidence.
We have a palm tree too. I see that too. Yeah.
I mean, you see them like in Florida where they have these big storms where they're all like sideways, right? So they're pretty strong, but when you see that thing swaying back and forth like that, it just doesn't breed confidence. The trees now, you were out there, you saw they're green, everything's growing back there.
Good, yeah.
Yeah. So with letting the chickens out, we do it every once in a while, but it's also a lot to clean up. And our dog has this nasty habit.
It's the only, eat that.
Yeah, he eats
the only
chicken shit.
downside about chickens and ducks, because we had them when we were kids, is that they do shit everywhere. They make a heck of a mess.
Yeah, and they like to, like we have that picnic table in the back. They love to shit there. They love to shit places where they're not supposed to, and we had some plants back there, and they were trying to dig into that. And so I was like, well, that's going to be the end of us letting you out every day, and they killed the tomato plants, so it's like, you guys are supposed to provide food, not take the food away from us,
That's funny.
But it does, it teaches the kids like a way to take care of animals, and not just a dog or a cat, but go out there and put your boots on and step in shit.
Yeah.
And they're more pet chickens because we're not going to eat them, right? You can't, when the chicken gets kind of old, the meat is not really, you eat it if you absolutely have to, but it's not like, oh, we're going to have chicken tonight and it's going to be like a chicken that you buy from the store.
See, I wouldn't know that because I don't eat chicken.
Oh, you don't?
No?
Why?
No.
You don't eat chickens?
Oh, what's wrong with the hamburger? What's wrong with beef?
I mean, I'll eat it all.
I've never liked chicken.
Really?
No. It started probably right after World War II when we were little kids. When my family, we lived in the country, and they would, the relatives, grandpa, everybody, they would butcher the chickens, cut their heads off, and they'd go flopping all over.
Yeah.
Which is okay, didn't bother me and all that. But then when they gather them all up, they would put them in hot boiling water so they could pluck the feathers. And that stench. To this day, I won't never eat a chicken. Never. I can't.
That's interesting.
I've talked to a lot of people when I was in the Navy too. We talked about that, and the guys, oh yeah, that was a horrible stench.
Really?
Put them in hot water, to pluck them. Oh, I just get yuck.
Huh.
Yeah.
I've never had to.
Made them easier to pluck, with the hot water.
Yeah, because I've never had to clean a chicken like that. I've, just basically I've had to clean fish, and that's basically it. But we actually did have to kill a chicken. R.I.P. Margaret Hatcher. I asked my wife, I was like, do you want me to do it? She was like, no, I need to do it. So she was like, okay. And I was like, I will then take the kids to the park. So I take the kids to the park and she goes and gets a knife, right? Like buys a knife, sharpest thing she could find, sharpens it more. And, takes the chicken, and the chicken knew what was going to happen, because it was dying. And so she cuts the head. It doesn't come off clean. Chicken flops around and everything. And she ends up actually cutting it. And then we have this little fire pit that we had to char. We had to like burn the carcass of it. So it was feathers and everything. But like once you burn it, it ends up looking like a chicken that you buy at the store, and it's just it's like they do kind of naturally look like that. And, but she had to, it wasn't just cooking because you can't eat it and you can't have anything else eat it either because they'll contract that.
Oh, for God's sake.
And even if a raccoon or a cat eats it, it goes into the shit. And when the shit comes out, the worms eat it, and the worms get eaten by a bird or anything, and it gets into that bird. That's how like how virulent this thing is. And so we had to burn it to where it was basically only charcoal left, like
Gotcha,
cremate
yeah,
this thing.
Yeah.
And get the flames as hot as possible. And so eventually we did, and it was just ash and bones at the end. But even the bones, like we had to make sure the bones got bagged up, threw them away, because like that thing can start such a cycle. And all the other chickens were infected, but we were able to inoculate them.
Oh, yeah, okay.
In time, they were vaccinated.
What caused that again?
It's like a nematode. It's kind of like it's like a worm that gets in there, like a parasite that gets in there, and it's a common thing. But apparently, when they breed, that's when the problem creates, because it creates like a thick Y in the throat.
Well, they just suffocate. Is that how they do?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they'll suffocate the chicken. Yeah, and they will live in birds to where a bird will shit on the ground, and the worms will eat it, and it's just the cycle keeps going.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I mean it's something that I'm glad the kids kind of like were okay with it. They were sad because one of their chickens had to die, but it was sad because you could see this chicken like slowly suffocating, and the comb on top turns from red to like a slight purple, and it gets more purple and purple, kind of like a person that's suffocating.
Do you have roosters?
No. They're kind of illegal in the city limits.
Because of the noise?
Yeah.
I just love that noise. I always like to check in the roosters.
It is a cool noise, and we actually were going to get a rooster for a while, but because one of the chickens was kind of bullying all the other chickens, because if you don't have a rooster, one will act like a rooster and kind of be the alpha, and they're making it so like they're pecking each other and like, no, you can't eat. No, you can't drink.
Oh, for God's sake.
And so we were going to bring a rooster in here to like regulate on them. And there was actually a wild rooster that was up the street. And so my wife called me and she's like, there's a rooster down here. You guys should come get it. And I was like, so me and my oldest daughter, we walked, and we had a couple towels, because with a bird, you want to cover its eyes, and covering its eyes will usually calm it down. It works with like hawks and a lot of things. So we were going to do that, but man, I really underestimated how fast those things are, and how
it was a wild chicken, kind of.
I think somebody let it out because when you have eggs and you don't know what's in the eggs, right? Could be a chicken or a rooster, and so a lot of times people let the roosters go, and it's like, okay, well, be part of the ecosystem,
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what somebody did with this, but I couldn't catch him, and so the next day I was like, I'm going to come by there with, I think I had like a large blanket, and I was going to try with a couple extra tools, right? Like a net, like a big net with a stick and everything. But by the time we got out there, somebody had already ran it over. Yeah.
The best time private catch is when it roosts at nighttime.
Yeah, but they're really good about finding hiding places, some of them.
Yeah.
Like there's been a couple times when it was storming and we had let the chickens out, like let them out all throughout the backyard. And the wind had shut that gate, so they couldn't get back to the coop. So then you got to find them, right? So I go in the coop and there's one chicken. There should be 5. There's just one. And so the red ones are pretty smart. The black ones are not as smart. So I was looking for where they're hiding, and I look up, and on top of the barbecue, there's 2 black chickens, and they're hiding, but all they're doing is like facing the wall, right? They're on top of the barbecue, and they're plain as day. You could see these chickens there, right? But they can't see anything, so they think they're hiding. So I'm like, okay, Aurora, get these chickens, put them back. I'll look for the other 2. So she grabs the chickens, puts them back in the coop, and I'm looking all over for the 2 red ones. And it's been a time before where they have gotten out, and I hadn't been able to find them till the next day, till where they just came out. And so underneath one of the bushes, they had dug a hole.
Oh, really?
And they got in the hole. Yeah. So like, if I didn't find them, they probably would have been okay. But still, something with a good nose could find them, And so I was able to get them back in there. But they're pretty good about hiding.
Do you guys eat eggs?
Oh yeah. Every day I have them for breakfast.
Oh yeah, okay.
And I mean, the difference between these eggs and the kinds you buy at the store is these will last for a very long time. The yolks in them are perfectly gold, and you got to really work to crack these eggs. You got to really crack it with a purpose because that shell is pretty thick.
Tough, yeah.
And we feed them like ground up egg shells to help with the calcium in their diet, so that the eggshell is actually a little thicker. But yeah, there's like, even if they didn't give eggs, they take care of so many bugs that it's still worth having them around.
But you have something they're being set now to raise?
Today, yeah. So my wife went to, because we have a broody chicken, right? And that kind of means like they're just kind of like it's kind of like a yearly chicken period, maybe, where their body's telling them that they're sitting on fertilized eggs, but they're not, right? So it's kind of sad because they're not fertilized. They think they are. So this time we're switching it up, and she went and got some fertilized eggs, and we're going to wait for them to go to sleep. And so once they go to sleep, we're going to like put them under there, because when the chicken's kind of like asleep, they'll let you pretty much do whatever you want to them, and slip them right under there. And then she won't get up because in a couple of days, she'll feel the eggs moving and growing. And so that's kind of like a trigger to be like, okay, yeah, now it's real. And so she's going to just park her ass in there and basically barely eat anything till those things hatch. It's going to be kind of funny because it's those chickens that are going to come out of there are not going to look anything like the chickens that we have. They're completely different species.
The kids to see them come out of the shells and everything.
Yeah, we're going to set up a camera in there to where we can kind of watch them, and so it'll be the kids, they love that kind of stuff, right? They love going out there.
I got to watch them when we were kids because my dad, they would buy chickens, buy eggs, and they'd fertilize them, or in the house with lights on them,
Mm-hmm.
and we could watch them as they come out of the thing. And
yeah,
it was pretty cool.
I used to breed lizards.
Oh,
when I was a kid,
yuck.
Yeah, leopard geckos. So they're actually like cool lizards. They kind of like have a face where they always look like they're smiling. And, so that was kind of my first experience with like the incubators and the eggs. But with those, you have to make sure that they stay moist. And there's nothing that sits on them, right? The mother doesn't go in there and sit on them. It's kind of like all about you, to where she will go in there and sit on it a little bit, but you got to keep a heat lamp on there. Keep like this moss in there where the eggs don't get too hard and don't get too soft, because they're supposed to remain a little bit soft, right? And they hatched, and then somebody came and stole the lizards.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They, instead of lifting, because they were in my dad's garage, right? And so my dad's house got broken into, and instead of getting the lid off the thing, they punched right through the glass and took them. Like, so obviously it was some of the neighborhood kids that knew, but like, how fucked up to steal animals, like you steal one thing. Like, somebody tried to steal my Yukon out of my driveway, and I can't get too mad, because they're just stupid. They thought that they could pry the ignition ring off, stick a screwdriver in there, and it would go. Come on, man. This is not a 1990 Toyota Tercel. There's the little transponder in the key. You can't, So I came out there one day and going to take the kids to school, and all my steering columns ripped apart. And
oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like, at least you could have been smart enough to steal the car, so I could have got it from the insurance.
But you couldn't even drive it yourself. You couldn't even put a key or nothing in it.
Yeah, I had to put things back in there, and now I can. But
okay.
Yeah, it looks like, because that ring is gone because they pried it off. So now it's just that metal piece that's in there that you kind of have to like fiddle it and get the key in there. So if I ever go to sell it, they're like, "Whoa, what's up with this?" I'm like, "Oh, somebody."
What year is that thing?
05.
Oh, that's not an LS motor then.
Oh, it is.
Oh, it is now?
Yeah. So it's a 4.8 liter. So it's the smaller version of it. And a lot of people like those motors because they have thicker cylinder walls and they can handle a little more boost, but that's kind of debatable, right?
Oh, okay.
Because if you're getting to where you're running too much boost for the cylinder walls, you're running some serious boost.
See, I'm too old to change over. I know an LS motor is a hot deal, but I've been around the Chevrolet V8s and I can build a motor. I almost blindfolded. I know them, and it's too late for me to start all over, and I don't want to go to the electronics.
Yeah.
So I just stick with what I got.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how I'm that same way, except I delved into the world of carburetors. You know, I was born into fuel injection. You know,
you can make that motor. Say they make valve covers to make that look like it's an old motor and everything.
Oh yeah, I will. I'll be putting that on there. But it's this motor was part of a separate project for the car, which I wanted to make the car into a 10-second car with a $10,000 budget. So that includes the price of what I paid for the motor and transmission and everything. So already $800 in.
That's aluminum head motor. Did you save that wiring harness off that?
Yeah.
You kept it? Because they call it plug and play. That you can take them and shorten them down and make them work. They're supposed to be
aluminum.
They are aluminum.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know shit. Actually, I just pretend I do most of the time.
Those motors
Good
look
at
good.
it.
They look good when they're dressed up like an early motor. Valve covers and intake manifold.
Yeah, and I mean, without all the all the smog stuff in there and all that the stuff to cloud up the engine bay, it's gonna be, I have a lot of room to work in that engine bay compared to my other Camaros where half of the motor is under the cowl.
Yeah.
And that you're gonna have hands like that look like you just basically stuck them in a mechanical fan like I did.
Yeah.
By trying to get those number 7 and number 8 spark plugs out there, and like there's special tools that I even had to build.
Get them on Amazon 2 days.
What the
317 heads?
Oh yeah. Well, those actually are not the heads that it came with. I had to buy those heads off of somebody else because when I got the car, it had a head gasket leak, and one of the intake manifold bolts sheared off in the head, and I was like, they're tiny things, right? They're like super small diameter, so I couldn't really cut it and get a screwdriver in there to get it, and I couldn't really weld anything on there. So I was like, well, I mean, these heads need work anyway, so I'll buy a new set of heads. And I did. I think I got them for $150 from LS1 Tech. It's a car form.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exchange.
Good for turbo.
Yeah.
Exchange.
Well, it'll be these heads are low compression heads, so they'll go good with a turbo. But with today, you really don't need low compression anymore to run a turbo. You can tune it for E85, which is the I think it's 115 octane, isn't it? Yeah, 115 octane that you can buy at the pump. It's mostly ethanol.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Which is for older cars, you want the opposite. You don't want the ethanol, but right at the pump. And the good thing about ethanol also is most of the gas is based on corn. So it's grown here in the United States instead of buying the oil from the Saudis or whoever, So it's kind of like gas that we can make here.
Gas went way down this week. It went down 2 cents or 3 cents.
Well, you'll see it go down because it's an election year.
Yeah, that's right.
And,
that's right.
And it's going to be hard to keep it down this time without going into our strategic reserves.
This time in 2020, gas was $1.68 a gallon.
God.
For regular. I saw it this morning on the deal. They showed it. 2020 when Trump was in, it was $1.68.
That's national average, right? Because here in California, we pay $2 more strictly tax alone.
You go to
Still be $3.
you go to Arizona right now, and it's almost $1.50, $2 a gallon cheaper.
I was just down there not that long ago, and it is.
Yeah.
It is absolutely cheaper. Nevada too.
Yeah, and I go to Idaho too, and it's $1 cheaper a gallon.
Yeah.
Also, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but with everything that's happening with Iran and Israel, if there is a bigger conflict, or if we put sanctions on Iran, then it's going to kill the gas prices here. So it's a double-edged sword because you want to punish them somehow for being a belligerent nation.
Very aggressive, yes.
But if you do, you're doing it during an election year, and you're going to shoot yourself in the foot by raising gas prices because that's the number one thing that people will talk about.
Yeah.
You know, and so you're in a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
Which
very true.
Iraq in a hard place.
yeah, you're in between Iran in a hard place. But you know, it's a interesting game the way that like politics goes into all that, you know, and it's that election year, and of course, just like every other election, it's the most important election for our democracy.
Yeah, the most.
You know, every year, every single time, it's like we have to. This is the most important election since the last one.
Yeah,
you know,
they promise so much and do so little.
So much, you know, and it's just at a certain point, it's like the stories that I hear from the Capitol, from the arguments and the things that go on at the Capitol where they're introducing bills and everything, is we have a Democratic super majority here. And that doesn't stop them from fighting. They just fight with each other, you know? And so you could have an equal number of Republicans. You could have an equal number of Democrats. They'll still fight. You could have way more Republicans. They'll fight with each other. Just like in Congress, they're fighting with each other. They you know, it's just...
It's amazing how California, though, it's all Democrats. Mm-hmm. I don't even know why we even have a Republican because we're just paying them for nothing. Nothing they can do.
Well, that's... So you might say that, but here's the thing. So a while ago, the Democrats did... and I'm just talking about state level Democrats, not the national DNC. But they were doing something called rolling the chair, which is basically you have a vote of no confidence against the speaker, which is what the House did not that long ago with Kevin McCarthy. And so half the Democrats wanted to keep the speaker. The other half of the Democrats wanted this new speaker in there. So it instantly made the Republicans relevant. And they could choose who they wanted as speaker.
I got you, yeah.
You know, so it's kind of like, it is irrelevant to a certain extent, but, you know, it's based off of what counties they represent here. So there's certain counties that are more right-leaning. It's just the most populous counties are far left-leaning.
Yeah.
You know?
My county is conservative.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think Sacramento is somewhere in the middle.
That's what I would think.
In the middle. But I mean, it's interesting because I hear all the back behind the scenes things that go on, you know, and there are some people there are some people that work there that actually want to help. There are other people there that have no business being there and are there for I have no idea what reason, because they're not necessarily corrupt, they're not necessarily rich. They just don't know what the hell they're doing, you know? But people in their area love them for some reason.
Yeah.
And so they get voted in.
Always.
And a lot of times, once you get voted in, you have such a high chance of getting voted in again, just based off name recognition alone. For me, name recognition is already a strike against you because you come from that. And, you know, I forget who said this, but politicians should be changed often, like diapers, and for the same reason.
Yes.
You know?
Absolutely.
Who said that? Did I make that up? I can't have made that up. Somebody said that. Look up, see who said that.
Say it again.
Politicians should be changed basically the same frequency as diapers and for the same reason. I feel like maybe I saw that on a movie. I don't know. But it definitely makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, it does for a fact. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
But at least, you know, and that's the whole reason I got this older car is because...
Mark Twain?
Was it Mark Twain? Did I just quote Mark Twain here?
Politicians and diapers must be changed often and for the same reason.
That Mark Twain?
Yeah.
Shit.
That's cool.
See, this is a high-class show we have here.
Yeah, it sure is.
We quote Mark Twain here.
And fact check it.
And fact check it in real time. Yeah, we spare no expense here. And
That's great.
Caught in the moment. But yeah, so I was running into all kinds of government regulations when I was trying to make my 99 and 98 and 2000 year Camaros fast because, smog stuff. And I didn't think it was a big deal. So I just take the headers off, put long tubes on there, take the smog stuff off. You don't need that. And, eventually when it come time to pass smog again, I realized that it's really not that fun to take all the fun stuff off and to put the shitty stock stuff off to put it back on there just to pass smog, just to do that over again.
Yeah, I've seen that. Now, see, where I live, we don't have smog.
Oh, because it's an unincorporated area.
I mean, there's supposedly 13 counties in California.
Yeah.
It doesn't require it, and I'm one of them. So I'm blessed with that. But if you buy or sell,
right,
still has to have smog. So you're still at their mercy. Mm-hmm. Everybody's, well, I'll keep it forever. Well, you don't. You don't keep everything forever.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I remember when I bought this, I think it was with Camaro number 4. And it was, the lesson with that one is you don't buy something that somebody has already built. So it was a 95 for 6 Camaro, and it had a 383 stroker in it, right? And it had it had a big ass cam in there, and it never ran right. It was always, it like would get off the hole quick, and then it would fall on its face because none of the top end was done, right? And it still had stock injectors, stock intake manifold, and it was just a loud piece of shit. But I thought it was cool because it was loud and it sounded fast.
Yeah.
It sounded like hell is coming at you. But, it couldn't run more than a 15-second quarter mile. And, I bought it and everything. And when I got to the DMV, I should have known because the guy was like, yeah, here's the tags. And he was friends with the guy that sold the car. So, a year later, and I just basically traded the car to somebody else. And I just sold it as is to them, said, won't pass smog. And the guy, I think he was a Korean guy. He couldn't really speak that great of English, but all he was concerned was like, does this have roller rockers on it? And I was like, yeah.
That's what he wanted.
And he was like, wow, this sounds like a hot rod. And I was like, yeah, it does. Mm-hmm. It sounds like it. I mean, needs some work. He's like, oh man, I love these American muscle cars. I was like, sure. So I traded, he traded me that car for a Suburban and gave me some cash, and so it was good. It was a good deal for me.
Is the smog cut off now at 74? 74 does not have to
75.
75.
So 75 is the last year that you can buy where you don't have to smog it.
Okay.
So it used to be, they used to have a running 15 years, I think it was 15 or 20 years, but then they stopped it at, I think it was 1995 or somewhere around there to where they just made it. Okay. So 20 years ago is 1975. So it's just going to be 1975 from now on.
Okay.
So, cause otherwise, I'd be able to get like a 80s Camaro and hop that up.
Well, they won't change that going down the road as years goes by.
It depends. I mean, it all depends on the people that we have in the government. If they are car enthusiasts, it depends on the lobbyists, because there are car lobbyists too.
Oh yeah,
hot rod lobbyists that will fight for that kind of thing. And there's industry people that manufacture parts for older cars, so they have a say in it. And so that's kind of, a lot of people give lobbyists shit, but there's lobbyists for everything.
For everything, yeah.
And it's just basically an advocate. But that's who the politicians listen to, because that's who takes them out to dinner. That's who's in their face every day. That's who, and these lobbyist firms where they will have different kinds of lobbyists in there. And, you don't want to go against this guy because he's part of this lobbyist firm. It's just, it brings an extra layer of that politics.
Yeah.
So we have to hope that those guys keep kind of fighting for us and making it so that they stick to that 1975 and not say, because there's certain, like our boy Gavin will, he would like to have it so.
We got to pause.
Okay. Oh, pause. All right. We got to change batteries.
Okay.
So let's tell us what'd you bring in today?
Well, it's a 1954 Chevrolet pickup. Pretty much all original with just a couple exceptions of some things. It's an original color. and so it has a factory automatic transmission in it from the factory, and then I've added power steering and disc brakes in the front, and then pretty much the rest of it's all original. And it's got a special interior in it because it's in 1954 Chevrolet pickups. Late in '54 decided to spoof them up a little bit for more sales, so they have 4 different interior colors in upholstery, and that's what I have in mind. And the one I have is probably the rarest of all color combinations in interior. So
Really?
yeah.
So, what kind of motor is this? Because it's a straight 6, but
The original standard motor was a 235 cubic inch, and this is out of a '54 truck. It's a 261 cubic inch. So it's got quite a bit more horsepower. And then I put a '54 Corvette exhaust manifold on it, so it has dual exhaust, factory dual exhaust.
oh,
Yeah. So, and then of course I've added an alternator and power steering to it. Other than that, it's basically all original. Now, the color of the motor, instead of being a blue-gray, the 261s were this color, green.
oh, like a teal.
Yeah. So it's an original color for the motor. And it was an optional motor for a half-ton pickup, but it's very rare for a pickup to have. You know.
So, with these old cars, I really like the chrome, and they always have an interesting hood ornament on there.
It's got a '54 pickup hood ornament on it. It's all factory. It's genuine '54 pickup. See how that's notched out here for this thing right here?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And has all kinds of accessories on it. It has a grill guard, has fog lights, and special hubcaps for '54 pickup.
Now, so do you hand paint these?
Yes, I had a sign painter paint those for me.
No shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it has a sun visor on it, and it has the little vent shades. But what makes this also unique is that it has a split seat in it.
Drive a Chevy.
But Drew, you missed most of it. Keep America beautiful.
Keep America beautiful.
You want to just grab the other one? That way I can just get like a face-on shot.
Damn. All this chrome. Such a lost art. Die-cast construction. God, everything in here is just like
I wanted to talk about that.
you could eat
Yeah,
off
go
it.
ahead. Talk
Oh, yeah.
about it.
This is an overflow tank for the radiator overflow.
Okay. Okay.
You know, you can't check it. I have an aftermarket one here. I don't use this because they rust out so easy. So I have it. It's a factory accessory, but I have it on there. It costs $150 for that, and I don't want to. You know, if I use it, then they just rust out. You know,
Oh, really?
The bottom rusts out. So, but that's an overflow tank.
This when I see this like manifolds like this,
Uh-huh.
it makes me think of marine applications. You know, just the way that the paint is on it, the way that it looks super sturdy. You know.
Yeah, the manifold's '54 Corvette.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because 54s had the Corvettes had V6s or straight
Six
sixes.
cylinders, yeah, they had 235s, and they had the dual exhaust, factory dual exhaust. So,
That's right.
so I got that.
God, everything in here it's like.
Well, I've been driving it, so it's showing its age on the motor already, you know, and underneath. But hey, it's just the way it is, you know.
But the attention to detail that you have on here is like it's insane. It's because did you do this yourself?
Everything, yeah.
Really?
No, it's a decal.
Oh, is it?
Hey, but if you wanted to get anal, if
Always.
all the screws and all the bolts, everything's parked. You know what that means? The screws are all perfectly parked and they're timed.
Right.
Timed. All the hex bolts, every hex head bolt's all timed. I just, David just picked that out by me.
I'm
anal. I'm just anal. I'm just.
Wait, let's bring it back. So then, by parked, these bolts, they're parked. What exactly does that mean? Because a lot of people may not know.
Okay. It means I tighten them all up, then I park them back so they're all exactly the same. They're all exactly the same. See how they're all painted back the same?
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Every bolt is
All
at the
through
same
the
angle.
Yeah, all through the whole truck's that way kind of. There's a couple I couldn't get this right here. I couldn't do these here because I'd have to put more washers on there to get it just right. But this has to be tight to keep the hood down. But all the screws 99% of the screws or better are all parked.
Jesus!
Everything's parked. If you just look at the hex head, see all the hex heads. See how that flat like that. Yeah, it's anal.
Wow!
And all the screws and interior screws are that way too. People catch it. Dave caught that.
There are
Dave used to
machines.
say, hey, all your screws are parked. I said, yeah.
Bill, there are machines with less attention to detail than you have here. You realize that, right? I
They
mean,
call me ACDC. Or no, what is it? What's that?
OCD.
OCD. Yeah. They're full of shit.
OCDC.
They're full of shit.
That'd be a good
They're
band.
full of shit because I am.
Holy shit!
Then look what I did here. This is another little detail that a lot of guys don't catch. It's a lot of guys who do these fenders know how to do it. But these two are factory rivets. There's a brace that goes all the way up here and it goes onto this one to pull here for support. See, there's one of the supports, wherever it is. Wherever this screws is right here. It goes right to here. It's a black brace. You can just feel it. Okay, a lot of guys take those off and weld up the holes. But that's a rivet. Well, you've done body work.
Sure.
How do you block sand that without building up all the stuff around it?
You have to build it up.
Yeah, you can't do it. My son's that way. And I said, son. So I drill the rivets out.
Yeah.
Do all the body work. Then I take a 3/16 carriage bolt. And it's the same size as a rivet. And that's a little carriage bolt in there now, but everybody thinks it's a rivet. But it's kind of an anal thing.
Wow.
But see how there's no buildup around it. And there's no way you can paint without having it under. And a lot of guys will catch it and say, hey, how did you do that? I said, oh man, I just spent a lot of hours sanding around the rivet. You're full of shit. And I had to tell them I did, But it's just little tiny things like that catches people,
Yeah, this is fucking killer.
I'll have two of you. I'd just like to show you really fast. I'll go through all my pictures and send them to you.
Yeah, and if you have any that are work in progress of this, if you have any kind of you're going at it. And,
this one? Oh,
yeah.
I got tons of them.
Yeah, send me those.
Okay. I'll just ad lib and go through some of them, and then you can just do what you want with them.
Yeah. So I can just shut it like that?
Yeah, just slow it down.
Does it go all the way down?
Yeah, just push it down one more time. Harder, just one.
Okay. Get nervous.
I know. I hate closing other people's
I don't.
sites.
Yeah, it's
even if I do somebody else's truck, I said, hey, you close it because I don't want to be responsible.
Yeah.
I don't want to be responsible.
No.
But I don't mind because I can take care of the photos. And then a big deal.
Damn.
It's a nice vehicle.
Yeah. All right, Bill.
Well, I guess I'll have to go through these pictures later because I had more. Wanted to show these fucking pictures that I do. When they get hot, they stay hot.
Yeah.
They don't cool down.
Chevys just run, even the LS motors love running hot. They run hot naturally.
But let me tell you something, what I learned in the last 25, 30 years from old mechanics.
We're hot.
Our motors are supposed to...
No, you're good. You're good. We can edit.
We're on, but we got to capture this.
I learned that we always wanted to keep the motors down to 165, 175. But they say the best, any motor, even the old motors, are old V8s, 283s, they're really run good when they're right around 210.
Yeah.
That's the key. Keep them running hot. It's still hard for guys like Grandpa and I to do that. We used to talk about it, but I still like to keep them running cool. But the motor lasts longer and performs better at 210.
Yeah, I mean it's
just unreal.
And especially with those aluminum blocks like the LS motors, because I know with all those LS motors, and when people say like, "Oh, I put a 160-degree thermostat in," and this is like 210, it's like, holy shit, does it still run?
Yeah, yeah.
And I
mean, it's next to 220. 210's right there next to 220. It just doesn't seem to make sense, but they do. They really, really run good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure. There's a couple issues with mine. So, like I said, I had a goal of getting this to run where we could drive it to the movie theaters and back. And that is exactly all basically it can do. Because the way that I have it wired up is as soon as the battery gets hooked up, it's hot, So there's something in there where I have to add like a little fuse or something to where it doesn't actually turn on unless the key's in there and it gets turned on, right?
Okay.
There's that. So every time I unplug, every time I stop and get out, I gotta open the trunk, take the battery off, right? Undo the cable. And another one is that it runs hot, and it might have to do with the thermostat. It might have to do with me having the wrong radiator in there. Or it could have to do with timing.
Timing is a big factor. What kind of a fan blade are you running?
6-blade mechanical.
Okay, because is it like a clutch fan?
No, it's just hooked directly to the end, and it's always on.
I'll say this: I read an article in Hot Rod magazine several years ago about a guy who had a 32 Ford. Obviously, he couldn't run a clutch fan, but he was given all the deal about the standard fans, the electric fans, and he said the all-time best fan for cooling a motor is a clutch fan. You know what that is, don't you? Clutch.
Like how it engages?
Yeah, that big old aluminum thing. Yeah, when it's cold. And so my 54 one-ton, that's a proven fact, because when I would drive that up there in the hills and stuff, and I was tolling the trailer, and I could hear the motor started getting hot, all of a sudden that would kick on, temperature gauge go right back down. To this day, that's what I run. So I got a clutch fan on everything that I can put on. The trouble with a clutch fan on hot rods, there's not enough room, like say the 32 Roadster, not enough room for it. But it is the most efficient fan.
Oh, okay, because I probably would have enough room in my Camaro.
Yeah, that came factory with one.
Yeah, well, that engine bay, I just can't say enough good things about the engine bay, because I could get in there with the motor in there. I could take a bath in there. It's so big.
Yeah,
and that's such a like a load off your mind, because you don't dread working on the car. Like, sure, you might run into a couple spiders or something in there, but you're not going to tear up your knuckles as nearly as much as you would on a newer car.
Yeah.
And you can't, like, people say, "Oh, wear gloves." You can't, though. You really can't. You can't do like this and like turn the little bolt like that with gloves on.
Well, I watched a lot of mechanics. I was in a shop Monday to have my front-end alignment. It was a mechanical shop and a front-end shop, and everybody wears rubber gloves. And they're mechanic gloves, so they're not the kind for the paint. They're a little better than the paint ones, I guess. But I cannot work with a glove. I just can't. I need the feel.
Yeah.
So I'll have dirty hands where they have clean ones. But
yeah, I mean, the only same here, but so this is actually my third wedding ring. Only one wedding, you guys, but third wedding ring, because when I started painting the car, I was like, oh yeah, I'm not going to wear gloves. So I paint, and I made sure to not get any paint on the ring. But when I go to wash my hands in the lacquer thinner,
well, now I take that back on rubber gloves. Now when I paint, I use rubber gloves.
Yeah,
I do put just the paint, not to get anything prepared, but just when I'm starting to paint, just to keep my hands clean when I'm mixing the paint.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm just covered with paint.
Yeah, but I guess I wasn't necessarily washing my hands. I think I was washing the gun, right, and like doing because I have like a little bowl of the lacquer thinner where I dip the gun in and and that got on the ring. And this is a ring where it has like meteorite and like dinosaur bones in it, like little flakes.
And it just ate it up.
Yeah. And because it has like a lacquer that goes around that keeps all that stuff in. And so the lacquer thinned the lacquer.
Oh yeah.
And it ate away at it.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so that was the first ring. The second ring I just lost because we were painting the house, and I think I just got way too many paint fumes and forgot where I put it. It's in the walls, I think, somewhere. But yeah, so then for Christmas, she got me another one.
Cool. That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like, it's not like I'm taking it off and going prowling around. I took it off and it was gone. I took it off because I didn't want it to get ruined like the first one did. And lost.
I've taken mine off and haven't put it on for years, but I have it. But it's always in the way when I'm working on stuff, getting hooked on the motors or something. It's just a.
Plus, in auto shop, I used to hear my teacher tell me stories about don't wear jewelry while you work on cars, because once his friend wore a watch that arced onto the battery, and it was
good shock.
Yeah, a good shock, and it was like a burn mark all the way around, and I guess it burned one of his veins.
I've never had jewelry. I'm not into jewelry. I'm not into all that stuff. So
me neither.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of I don't like wearing the ring, and it was kind of nice to not have it, because it's kind of not only do I constantly fiddle with it, but it's on me.
Yeah, yeah.
And it just, but my wife likes it.
Yeah.
So, but we were talking about Gavin before we had to change the battery. So we what I've heard, the legislation that is possibly being pushed through is regulation on the sound now. So under 100 decibels. So, but that's also a term that's also something where you can get away with it with an electric cutout of the exhaust. You can baffle the shit out of your exhaust and then just have an electric cutout there and bypass it all.
Well, Josh, how the Mustangs do that? They come factory with the loudest mufflers that there is. Then they can flip it and it goes, because a friend of mine's got one, and
an electric cutout.
Yeah, it's all factory.
Yeah, I mean, it's just basically it's a.
I didn't know if it's electric, but I just know it must be electric.
You can do one where you could reach under there and turn this little butterfly valve, or there's electric cutouts which are pretty cool. You just press a button and it just gets louder. But they're these little 2-in-1 things. It's a 2-in-1, and one goes on your exhaust. One is a cut-off butterfly valve, and the other one just goes straight through. So the way that it happens, the way that I understand it, is when you push that butterfly valve flips up, and then this one closes, so that all the air gets just pushed off, and it's basically like you have a cut exhaust.
Okay.
So it gets a lot louder. But when you go and when you're driving around town or something, and you go to get it smogged, you can put that on there, and it's like you have extra mufflers, and it's extra quiet. But for me, I told you when I was trying to put all my headers back on, right? My stepdad has a lift at his house, so it was easy to switch it out. So I put the car on the lift, and he was helping me take the long tubes off and put the shorties back on. And then a neighbor, he's passed away right now, but he's an old school hot rodder. He comes over and he looks under the car. He's under the car for 1 minute, and he's like, "Oh, you got nitrous on this thing, huh?" I was like, because my stepdad didn't know. I didn't tell anybody that had nitrous on there. And I had tried to hide it so well to where I put the bottle in the spare tire compartment, right? So there's this interior panel that you have to take off to see the bottle, right? And underneath, I ran the stainless steel line right next to the frame, so you could barely see it. But it went into this hole that looked like somebody had just punched it out. And so he looked at that, and he saw that it went from the trunk straight to the engine bay, and there was 2 solenoids that were facing down, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you got nitrous on this, right?" I was like, and then my stepdad just interrupts. He's like, no, he doesn't. No, he would never. And I was like, well, actually, there is a 150 shot hooked up to this. And Bill was like, what? And I was like, yeah, actually. So I guess I'll show you. But
did it really work?
Oh yeah. It's like another gas pedal.
Oh yeah.
It's especially with 150 shot, because that's basically 50% more horsepower. And
that's a lot.
It was good. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. And this was when nitrous was $6.50 a pound. So, it's a 10-pound bottle. And the rule is about every second that you hold that button down is about 1 pound gone per 100 shot, right? So I had 150 shots. So hold it down for a second. It's a little bit more than a pound that goes down. But it's like you're renting power instead of buying a turbocharger, buying a supercharger. You're renting the power because it only costs a couple $100 to put on, and it doesn't affect your smog at all.
No, but it short lives the motor though, doesn't it?
Somewhat. If you do it the wrong way, it does. So what I did was I added what they call a wet kit, which adds fuel and nitrous. So it has its own standalone fuel system.
Okay.
Because the issue with nitrous is people think that you can just squirt nitrous in there and it'll go, and it will. But you have a really good chance of leaning your motor out. So that's when things go wrong.
See, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's when things go. That's when you see the intake manifold pop through the hood. That's when that happens. But for me, I had a wet kit, which it's a standalone gas system for the nitrous. So every time you hold down the button, you squirt gas and nitrous at the same time. And I also had my laptop in there to where I could immediately plug it in and pull 6 degrees of timing, because you want to pull 2 degrees for every 50 shot. And I also had plugs, spark plugs in there that were 2 steps colder. So I did everything that I possibly could, other than like get a full direct port system to make it safe, right? And I spent, I got the car at like 100,000 miles, and when I sold it, it had 200,000 miles on it, and so those were not one of them was a soft mile. Okay, this is somebody who's like 20 years old, 21 years old, who has a car with nitrous.
What kind of motor?
It was an LS1.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
So it was an LS1, had a 6-speed in there. And with nitrous, you actually have the actuator switch. So there's 2 things. There's the arming switch, which is like, okay, you flip it and okay, now the solenoids are hot. They're ready to go. And then there's the actuator switch, which people call a wide open throttle switch. And people usually hook it to the gas pedal or somewhere near there. Or the throttle, to where it won't activate unless you're fully into it, right? Which is also a safety feature, because if you activate it when you're half throttle, it creates problems.
Oh.
But so what I did was I took that switch and I had wired it all the way to my gear shift. And so it was kind of like a fighter jet, to where it was like, yeah. So I didn't even have to I didn't have to mess around with anything, but it was cool to have like a trigger on your gear shifter, you know, just
Oh, cool.
for no reason other than it was cool.
What did Bill say about that? Was he upset?
He was upset, I think, that he didn't notice it, and that the neighbor was here for like literally 1 minute. 1 minute. The guy comes over, he looks over there, he's like, oh, you got nitrous on here, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Shit. You know? But it was fun. It was a lot of fun, especially with the long tubes. And, you know, I also had another safety thing in there, which was it's called a Racetronics fuel pump with a hot wire kit. So it was a 255 liter per hour fuel pump. And it had a hot wire kit that would go directly to the back of the alternator. So the more voltage you had, the more fuel pressure that you had. And so I had a 200 amp alternator on there. So it was cranking, you know, and I never ran out of fuel pressure, which is another thing that people run into with nitrous with problems. So I covered that base. I covered the base of having it inject with gas, covered the base of the 2 steps colder plugs, covered the base where I pulled timing. And so, I mean, nitrous it was about as safe as I could get it, you know? And I only used it maybe a handful of times, but man, it's fun.
Yeah. I've never had a blower or a turbocharged ever, but I had a 327 one time with a ram log, with 2 Hollies, a ram log. It's like putting another motor in a car. It had so much horsepower.
Really?
To hold your head back on the seat.
So a ram log, is that it's just
2 4-wheels, but they're side by side instead of inline. They're side by side, and it's, you know, they're real high.
Oh, wow!
Yeah, it got a lot more air in it too. Yeah, it was really amazing.
You have to put a special intake manifold on for that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It was a custom. It was on one. I don't know if it wasn't no Elderbrock, but it was some Offenhauser probably. It was something.
Oh.
But you know, they were offset a little bit too. You know, man, you talk about horsepower. Oh God, a 327 motor is one of the better Chevrolet motors, I think.
Right. They don't run hot.
No, they don't run hot, and they just super horsepower.
Yeah, I mean, the 327, did that come out before the 350?
Oh yes, yeah,
Yeah.
283 and then 327.
Yeah, because those 327s, they were kind of like the little brother of the 350.
Yes,
And it was always it was more, I want to say, reliable.
it was a very good motor.
But yeah, I mean, I've never had anything with a 327 in it, but
And this same motor was a 327 cubic inch, 365 horsepower stock, aspirated. If it was fuel injected, it would be 375 horsepower.
what did that come in?
Well, come in 64 Corvettes, 64 Chevrolets. That's when it was 64. Maybe 63, but 64 and 5. Hot motors.
Because the most powerful motor back then was, or the fastest, I guess, fastest muscle car back then was a Buick, right? GTX.
Yeah, the black Buick. What do you? Not the what's the black Buick? It's all black. Fastest production car in America in '87, in 1980.
Oh, it's a GTX.
The Grand National.
Grand National,
Grand National. Fastest production car in America.
Yeah, I mean,
V6.
V6 with twin turbos. Was it twin or single turbo?
I'm not sure, but I just know they were buku horsepower.
You know, I actually was gonna go buy one. I had test drove one, and like those haul ass. Even to today's standards, up until very recently, when cars obviously started to come out with 400 horsepower, right? But even like the LS world, those were fast, and those were in the 80s, right? And so those things, when I test drove this thing, it was in a straight line. It was like, whew, but the suspension in that Buick was like, you know, because it's super like plush, right? And the seats in there were very comfy, and it didn't feel like a muscle car, but it felt like a really fast gangster car, you know? And, but the guy wanted 11 grand for it. And that was, you know, I mean, 11 grand for an 80s car.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I mentioned that your dad and grandpa and I had lived in the greatest era, but see, we came from with 6-cylinder motors to nothing to V8s to 265, 283, 327 on up. You know what I mean? Just now look at the horsepower. Look at the LS motors. Mm-hmm. I had a young kid down in the Bay Area who I worked with, and they were into the Toyotas and all those Acras with all those but they still said, he said, Bill, but the real fun motors in the world are the 427s and stuff from the 70s. He said, because they're far more superior in, you know, instant horsepower. He said they were more exciting horsepower than what you got now.
Well, because you had,
That's coming from a young kid telling me that.
Well, yeah. I mean, because they are very simple, right? It's just the motor, and it's cam and block. There's no cam gears to change. It's heads and a cam, not cams and a head.
Yeah, in that respect, that's why I stay with it. Everything's simple to me. I don't understand all this other stuff, dual overhead cams and all that. It's just way over my head.
It's a lot.
I'm not even interested in that.
VTEC.
Yeah.
And it makes the motor bigger too. It makes it so you have less room in there.
Yeah.
Because you've got these big ass overhead cams that are there, like what Mustang uses, and up until just recently, I want to say like a couple years ago, now Chevy is doing it, you know, but they used that cam and block design for years and years and years, up until I think 2017 when the Corvettes came out with the LT motors, the second bringing of the LT motors.
Yeah.
And I mean, those LS motors are now basically what the 350s used to be and what the 50s used to be, because now you can go and you can get an LS motor out of just about anything, and you can put it in just about anything and make it fast, reliable, and everything.
They bolt up to what I have, to all my transmissions. They bolt right up to everything. Yeah.
And even just swapping it in, it's just a couple clamshell mounts, you know, just those Chevy clamshell mounts.
Yeah.
And it's just, they're so versatile.
Yeah, they say they're really, really easy to do. Everybody's doing it.
I saw somebody put an LS motor in a Tesla. Yeah, that was quite a project to see, but they had to also create a tunnel, right? Because there's no drive shaft.
I think I've read something about that, where somebody was doing this. Some kids were doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is slower with that.
I was just going to say, But boy, those electric cars are so gosh darn fast. It's unreal. Totally unreal. So is a diesel motor.
Oh yeah.
Diesel just gets me.
I was actually gonna before I got this Yukon, I was gonna get a Duramax, it was an '06. It was a Chevy diesel, but the truck was all rusted out, and it was the kind of rust where you can pick it off with your finger, like the nasty kind where it had to have been sitting in salt water for a long time, and the motor was fast, but it had noises, and it was just like it pained me to have the money to buy it and to walk away from it because of with those trucks that the frame is rusty.
It's just junk.
It's junk.
Yeah.
The
only thing I have against the LS motors, the company trucks that we had, with over 150,000 miles on pushing 200,000, they start rattling like lifters.
Mm-hmm.
And so it still ran good. We had like 3 or 4 of them, and I went to my Chevrolet dealer in the Bay Area and asked him. I says, "Hey, can we buy can we put a new oil pump on? Is that what's the problem here?" And he says, "No, Bill." He said the motor's gone. I mean, those keep on running, but he said there's no fix to it, but other than a new cam and a new everything. He said they don't last as long as your V8s, the old 350s. He said those motors are. The truck I had before that LS was a '89 Chevy pickup with 653,000 on the motor, documented by Chevrolet, because I put 350 miles on it every day, and every other Friday I'd have to take it for an oil change. So I took it to the dealer up in Jackson, so that was always documented. And General Motors 80 would call me, would want to do an interview on the thing. But then they'd ask me, "Well, what about the transmission?" I said, "Well, no, it's had 2 transmissions and 1 rear end." "Oh, well, they're not interested." And this went on that started like at 300,000, but it got to be 653,000 before I got a new truck. And it was still going great. Never burned any oil or anything. But I told the lady from General Motors, I said, "I don't know why you keep calling people like me. There's no such a thing in this world as an automatic transmission or rear end's going to go those many miles."
Right.
The motor will, but I says, "You guys, you need to just documentate the motor. Don't care about that." "Well, we want the whole package." I said, "There's no such a thing."
Yeah.
And if you do find one, it's a lie.
Yeah, and definitely not with that many miles.
Not that many miles. And mine was documented because every time I come in, and the salesmen, they all come out every Friday, and they just say, "Hey, how's it running?" I said, they used it as a sales pitch because they look at that thing. And they had a wall with all the cars with a lot of miles. Shit, I just passed them all up like it was nothing. 653,000, a lot of miles.
Yeah, that is a lot.
But all the other cars were that salesman trucks had. I worked the same thing. Just that mine was documented because I took it to the dealer every Friday,
Yeah. I mean, one thing about that Gramps would always say is that nothing is superior to Toyota, and because he had those little trucks, he had those Tacomas, and they would have like 500,000 miles on them, and the way that he drove, he was very meticulous about everything, about oil and everything about it.
He's correct, but another one just as good, equally as good as a Honda.
No, I would.
Honda is just as good because I had a little Honda Civic, 93 Honda Civic, one of those little small hatchbacks. Come to find out, I guess they call it a gas saver or something because I got 40 miles to the gallon with it. Oh, I got it from Dave and Sandy.
Oh, really?
Do you remember the one that Grandpa bought?
Oh, a black hatchback?
Yeah.
Stick.
Yeah, and they crashed it.
Yeah.
And so Dave gave it to me because he didn't want the liability. So I used that as a commute car. That thing had 400,000 miles on. The only thing we ever did, had to put 2 used distributors, and 1 alternator, and 1 water pump, and 1 radiator.
See,
it wouldn't lay down. It would not lay down.
I think maybe those particular motors, and especially that transmission. But the only motors that I've had issues with that the motor is gone is in Honda.
Oh, really?
Like my wife's CRV, it was a 2-liter motor, trash. That it like let go, and then her Pilot out there, the transmission in those Hondas are terrible. The automatics.
Oh yeah.
They're awful. And you need specific Honda oil to put in there. And they're different transmissions than what Toyota uses, different than Nissan, different than Mitsubishi. And because those guys all kind of use similar transmissions. But these Honda transmissions, I'll never buy a Honda again because of those transmissions. You know, just because of that. I mean, you say like the older Civics, those are something that's still desirable though.
See, yes. And I'm only going on by that Honda that I had. Now, I don't know about new ones, but I just know the thing would never quit running.
Mm-hmm.
But Toyota, as far as resale value, Toyota's it.
You heard about, I watched something about, so a Toyota Camry they made it easy to dent the bumpers and hard to fix the dented bumpers. So you see a lot of these Camrys going around no matter what year with a bumper dent. And they did that specifically because they were so reliable that people would just not get a new car. So they relied on people thinking that they were I want to get a new car because of the looks.
Yeah.
You know, that's something that you don't really hear about. And that's insane.
Yeah, really.
You know, because you built a car to run for forever and you're banking on basically vanity for car sales.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know?
Yeah.
Which is cool. I mean, that's a hell of a selling point.
It is, yeah.
I even there was a Toyota commercial one time, and see if you can pull this. It's a Toyota commercial where there's a broken down Toyota on the road, and there's this like really hot woman that's like asking for help, and the people are like, "It's a trap," and they zoom right by her, right? And it ends up like she's like this killer. But then the guy's like, "How did you know?" And he's like, "Toyotas don't break down."
That's a good one.
You know?
Good commercial,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is this it? Yeah, this is it right here.
How do we look? How do we look?
¿Qué pasa? ¿Te volviste loco? Una trampa. ¿Una trampa? ¿Cuándo has visto un Toyota que se quede en la carretera?
That's good.
That's
good, dude.
Yeah.
You're good.
Pulled it right up. Man.
Yeah, right now.
But yeah, so that's Toyotas, right? So if I end up getting a foreign car, it's going to be Toyota or Lexus, you know?
Yeah, I can concur on that one.
It's just superior, you know, unless it's a Chevy or GM, you know, or I guess a Tesla.
The trouble with GM nowadays, and they have been for some time, it's kind of shameful, but everything's made in China. I have a friend that's a parts manager of a big Chevrolet dealership in the Bay Area, and him and I sold aftermarket parts for years for the body shops, you know, cars, bumpers, and all that kind of stuff, fenders, hoods, and he used to make fun of me. He said, "Oh, you sell all that shit and junk," and I said, "Floyd, your stuff is the same shit as mine, only you but more money." And he argued with me. And finally one day he called me, he says, "I can't believe I was going through some of my stuff." And he said, all the moldings for the Corvettes and all the moldings and the stuff. And he said, I got to look and he said, everything's made in China. I said, I told you.
Yeah, you know, we're getting away from that though, thankfully, because of China's belligerence.
Oh, yes.
And because they are starting to be a real threat. And the whole Taiwan thing, but now
what makes you think it's coming back? I want that to happen, but
it's coming back to America. It's not coming back to the United States. It's somewhat, but it's going to Mexico.
Okay.
So Mexican labor is cheaper, and there's a higher quality in Mexico than there is in China, which is good.
Yes.
And on the other flip side, Mexico is not necessarily friendly with us, but they obviously don't have warheads pointed to us.
Yeah.
And they don't steal all our shit and rearrange it and, you know, like re-engineer it. But on the other side, it's mainly, and, you know, all those reasons to do it would have been the right reasons to do it. But the reason that everybody's doing it is because what happened during COVID, right? Where China's making everything, but China's shut down. And so we can't get anything overseas. So Mexico makes it. Just, you know, send it right across.
Yeah, because see, China to me is our number one enemy because they have they make all our medicine. They make everything for us, and if they don't want to sell it, we're hurting. Mm-hmm. They let all the manufacturing go, It's sad.
Yeah, I mean,
It's really sad.
in the grand scheme of things, that is one thing that the older generation kind of like fucked us over with, because they, you know, and it may not necessarily be your generation, but it may be the generation between mine and yours, where they got in charge of these businesses, and to save a dollar or two, they decided to send it over to China. And
Grandpa and I talked about that a lot. There's no saving on it, because even the Republicans, which is, you know, I'm conservative, but even the Republicans, like Mitch McConnell, they have him and his wife. They have ties with China, you know, investments and stuff. So nobody's ever going to change anything. Nobody's going to cut them off and stuff, you know.
Right.
It's really sad.
right, and if there is, I mean, new politicians, I got to think that up and coming politicians, they're a target to have China just start writing checks to them,
Yep.
get them in their pocket. And I mean, and I used to talk about this with Gramps too. I don't know if one of us got there to the government, if we would have that kind of strong will to resist that money, because you are at this point just taking care of your family and take care of yourself. You know, a lot of people don't have that kind of forethought.
We were talking about the other day, how could you be a person going in and have net worth of $200,000, but you come out a multimillionaire, and all of those politicians are that.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just so dishonest.
Oh yeah, you know,
Totally dishonest.
there's either a Reddit or a web page or something where people only do stock trades that Nancy Pelosi does, and they kill it. I mean, you know, she is a better stock trader than Warren Buffett.
Oh, really?
Her success is even higher than Warren Buffett.
But it's all inside, though. She gets all
Sure.
inside trading.
Sure.
Her and
Well,
her husband.
oh, but no, it can't be. That's illegal.
And Dianne Feinstein and her husband, the same thing.
How can that be? That's illegal. They always follow the rules.
It's pretty sad.
Yeah.
It's pretty sad. So hypocritical.
Yeah.
So hypocritical, yeah, really.
But that's all we've got right now.
all we
Until
got.
people wake up, until there's, you know, people that,
If we don't do something in this election, it's over with.
well, people.
I'm old, so I'm out of the equation. But you guys, you're never going to see America.
We're fucked.
Well,
Yes.
you see, I mean, if you look at it right now, it's easy to say that we'll be fucked. But there's all kinds of things that are happening that, you know, I have to maintain optimism. 'Cause what else is there? You know, and like, I tell my kids, like, you know, I have to say that, you know, China, Russia, Iran, all these people, all these places, with the exception of North Korea, they're doing what's best for them, right? And I can't necessarily fault them for that, because I wish there was somebody that would do that for the United States, what's best for the country, you know, instead of, usually it's just what's best for them.
Yeah.
You know, but with China, to their credit, they play the long game, and they have invested in a lot of things to make it so that it's China first, you know, and nationalism is okay there. Nationalism is okay in Russia. Nationalism is okay in Iran, but it's looked down upon here, you know, and, you know, he's doing what's good for Russia. They're doing what's good for China. We should be doing what's good for America.
It's a fact.
But,
It's a fact.
you know, there are some that are, but the vast majority of the ones that are in power are not. And so that's the problem, you know, and eventually I can see it coming back and changing. You know, people are starting to wake up to all the bullshit that people have been spewing for the past couple of years. And, you know, what is the best fighting? What's the best way to fight bad speech? With more speech. You know, eventually bad policies and bad decisions come out with time, you know?
Hopefully. I'm just hopeful for that.
So they will, you know, bad decisions and mistakes come out, you know, and you can hide it for a little while, but you can't hide it forever.
Yeah.
So, all right, Bill, hey, it's been real, and it's been a great time. I hope you come back.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
Okay, buddy.
All right, guys. See ya.